we will be looking at the session on project proposal. At the end of this session, you will be able to understand the importance of writing a project proposal and also how to write the project proposal for grants. What is project proposal? This is the first question that people keep asking. If you have to even build a house, you have to make a proposal. You need a loan, you have to submit a proposal. So, actually project proposal is part of our daily life, and especially in development work, in social work, this is the main document that we submit to a donor. So, if you were to define a project proposal, it is a document designed that presents a plan of action, outlines reasons why this action is required, so that we can convince the donor to fund the program and approve the plan. So, to give a better definition, it is also a detailed description of a series of activities aimed at solving a certain problem. And in order to do this, it is a document that should provide a logical presentation of ideas, giving significance of the idea. So, it is a tool which shows a cycle of development, which also brings in solution. So, in short, project proposal is an important planned document which presents genuine problems identified in a scientific manner, which suggests means to solve them or to mitigate them. It mentions how successes will be measured, that is the outcome, and what will be the impact of doing an implementation, and how we can sustain this program, what are the timelines, and a realistic budget. Types of proposals. There are different types of proposals: formal proposals, informal proposals, unsolicited proposals, and proposals which are in process. The first is the formal solicited proposals. These are submitted in response to an advertisement given in the newspaper or in the website. They are called the request for proposals. For such proposals, there is a clear guideline or an outline given. One has to read them carefully and then develop the proposals as per the instructions, and all the attachments that are requested have to be in place. Next is the informal solicited proposals. Now, this kind of proposals generally come out as a result of a meeting with a donor or an informal meeting. Funders may be interested in an idea or an innovation. Informal proposals are generally solicited through a word of mouth, verbally, or through a reference or a personal contacts. Third is the unsolicited proposals. Many a times the organizations, they go on a fundraising drive and they develop a series of proposals that are in line with the vision and mission of that organization. And such proposals are submitted randomly to different donors. Proposals may be problem specific or generic. Lastly, proposals in process. Proposals under renewal of the existing grant or resubmission request based on some inputs that they have asked, or a revision on the existing grant which requires additional funding. These are some of the areas where the proposal is in process and we are getting an additional inputs given. The next thing, before writing the proposal, the most important component is the donor or funder. You need to know who is your donor or your funder. We all know funds are required for any developmental work. So, you need to know there are different types of donors. There are government donors, there are individuals who give donations, there are private foundations, there are corporates, or there are international agencies. Have a list of such donors and network with them. Methods of funding are different. For each donors have a specific requirement, and while preparing your proposal, this is very important and it should be kept in mind. What is the requirement of the donor? What is an issue or the theme that the donor is interested in? Fundings can be in the form of grants, it can be a donation for your corpus, it can be an endowment, it can be direct funding for a specific projects, It can be a bilateral funding, that is between two governments through a government. It can be project based funding, it can be an in-kind contribution. For example, somebody gives you sewing machines if you want to have a skill development program for your women in the community, or a reimbursable part funding. For example, if you are making toilets, the family put in part money and the part money the donor gives. Stepwise guide in preparing the project proposals. Now, this part I have divided into 3 stages. The first stage is the pre-preparation stage. The second, how to write the proposals, and last is this submission and the follow up. So, let us go to the stage 1, that is pre-preparation stage. Keywords: your concept, your program and your expenses. You have to have some understanding of that. So, what are the questions that you need to ask at this stage? You need to ask whether your concept is developed in line with the problem that exists. Have you done a scientific understanding of the problem, the magnitude of the problem? For example, have you done a need assessment or a situational assessment or a stakeholder analysis or a gap analysis that can give you scientific evidence based data as to the severity of the problem and why it needs to be addressed? Check whether your facts are right. Is the implementation plan addressing the problem? It should not be that the problem and your plan does not match with each other. They have to be in line with each other, in sync with each other. You have to put in a realistic timeline so that you can achieve or solve your problem that you are proposing for intervention. You will have to put a monitoring plan in place, and you also need to very clearly know what are your expenses that you require for a project to be implemented. The next stage is while you are writing your proposal. So, how do you structure your proposal? Now, again here I have put them into 3 sections. One is your executive summary, one is your implementation plan, and last is budget and the other annexures. Now, coming to your executive summary. Executive summary has to be crisp, concise. It should very clearly state what is the problem, the magnitude, in few words how this problem will be solved, who will solve, what are the roles, responsibilities, what is going to be the outcome results, and what in short would be the expenses. If you have done a situational assessment or a need assessment or a stakeholder analysis or a gap analysis, or if you have used any tools, the findings of this will help you to make the problem statement. Do not write pages about this, but it has to be crisp, to the point, stating clearly what is the problem. Once this 2 part is done, then you start writing the implementation plan. The first thing that you start writing in an implementation plan is the goal. Goals can be abstract, like saying to ensure that there is sanitation in a village, or to say there is to reduce maternal mortality. These are vague statements, abstract statements, but these are goals. This is where you want to reach. The next most important part is writing the objectives. This is an important part in the proposal writing. Now, how would you write an objective? Objectives have to be SMART, S-M-A-R-T. S stands for, that it has to be specific, it should be measurable, it should be achievable, it should be realistic, and it should be timely or time bound. So, your objectives need to be very crisp, giving what is the problem, how it is going to be measured, and by when. So, to give you an example, same with the toilets, the organization could mention that the organization would build 50,000 toilets in 10 villages by 2017. So, it is specific, it is measurable, it is achievable, there is a time it is time bound and it is also realistic. The next most important thing is the target population or the beneficiaries. Clearly state who the beneficiaries are, give the numbers or what is the quantity that is going to be addressed with your intervention. Now, the target population could be direct or indirect. Direct are the ones with whom the intervention will directly impact, and the indirect are ones who, because of impacting the direct population, it impacts them too. So, you can also mention if you want your direct target group and your indirect target group. Then once you are clear with this, the next most important part is writing the strategies and activities. Now, what is strategies? Strategy is nothing but how will you address the problem, or how are you going to ensure that the problem that you have identified is going to be addressed. So, your strategy should be therefore in line with the objectives, in line with the problem that you have stated. Strategy should be straightforward, okay, and the donor should know that your organization has the ability and the expertise to do this job. This is very important. And once the strategies are very clearly stated, crisp, straightforward, short, then the next thing is what? To achieve these strategies, how are you going to get them done? So, what the next things that you will write is the activities. Each strategy should be further described by mentioning clearly the activities. These are specific steps that will help you to achieve these objectives. So, to give an example again on the toilets, your strategy would be to have X number of awareness sessions. So, your activity will be to have a home to home meeting visits, home visits. Your next activity would be to have community level meetings. You would want to paint the walls, giving the importance of building toilets. So, these are some of the activities that you will clearly specify, that this will create an awareness. So, similar fashion you develop your strategy and you develop your activities. Then the next most important point is the timeline. Make a detailed timeline for each activity. Factor your process while you are making your timelines, because sometimes some things that are process driven also takes a lot of time. So, ensure that and accordingly make a timeline. Then the next most important part is who will do all this. So, staffing and administration is very important. Mention the team, what is the task that they will do, what will be their roles and responsibilities need to be clearly articulated. Then, so now you have your goal, your objectives, your target population, your strategies, activities in place, you have your timeline and you also have your team. Now, the next most important part is the monitoring structure. You have got your goals, your objectives, your target population, your strategies and activities done, your timelines are done, your team is in place. So, now what is the next thing that you will really do is how will you monitor this? Is this program going in the direction that you have planned? Is it how? So, it is going to be definitely future tense, but you need to visualize beforehand whether your program is going in right direction, and if so, how are you going to ensure that you are monitoring it. So, the two suggestions, one is that you can, the project team or the staff can do the monitoring, which is an MIS system they can have. So, what is that MIS system that you are going to put in place? And next is supervisory structure, where the board of directors also will be doing the monitoring, maybe quarterly, monthly, 6 monthly. So, you have to mention in this how often the monitoring will be done, who will do it, what will be monitored and why. Are they going to assess the thing to see whether things are happening or to ensure the quality? All this, if you write, generally donors like it very much, because they are very sure that you are going to ensure that the project is reaching its end objective. You can also write about evaluation. A midterm evaluation is a very good idea to put into your proposal, because when you did a problem need assessment and you identified a problem, and when you roll out a problem, chances are that while implementing you come across some of the strategies or activities that may work or may not work or need to be enhanced. So, midterm evaluation helps you to make a revision. So, you can include that into your plan. Your evaluation, you can also have an end-line evaluation mentioned. An evaluation should be both qualitative and quantitative. Generally, you should do an evaluation using an external consultant or an agency, so that you get an unbiased report of your implementation. So, factor this into your proposal and also into your budget. The next most important part is, remember that a donor is investing in your organization, and the donor would like to know whether this problem, if solved, will that same thing be sustained and not arise the moment your organization closes up. So, sustainability is a very important part, and you need to write very clearly what is your sustainability plan. From the day one of your implementation of your program, how are you going to make sustainability a very core part of your implementation plan. Now, this helps the donor to make a decision for your permanent commitment. Remember that. Last is the conclusion for the proposal, where you write final comments, reiterate what you want to do, why. In the conclusion, also emphasize on leveraging of resources. For example, if you are going to collaborate with the government, mention that, it is very important point. Partnerships, are you going to partner with other self-help groups, local village committees, mention that. Very important, gender sensitivity. Are those considerations going to be factored in? For example, if you are going to build toilet, are you going to be ensuring that women's issues are also taken care of, that there is enough ventilation, that it is in such a way that the women can also access those toilets, and most of all show confidence in your proposal. That is what your conclusion should be. Now, we have written the executive summary, we have stated our problem, we have done our implementation plan. Now, the next most important part is the funds. You need money to implement this, and so budget becomes a very key part of your project proposal. So, mention the budget again in line with your objectives, in line with your strategies and your activities and your human resource. So, you can categorize your budgets under the line head of admin cost, which includes your human resource cost, communication, infrastructure, all that. The next is the program cost, the actual program, the implementation of your program, that is the next most important part. So, what is that cost going to be? So, how much money do you require for awareness programs, how much money do you require for training, to build toilets, all this cost for your meetings, all this cost have to be put in. And then the next section is your monitoring and evaluation. Do not forget, this is an important part. So, are you going to have review meetings? Mention them, how often and what will it cost. Are you going to have community monitoring meetings? Mention them. So, those things have to be mentioned and put a unit cost for each of these budget line items and then make a total budget. It is advisable to always give a justification for each of these budget line heads. It would be good to share a budget expenditure plan with the timelines. So, the donor gets a confidence of how we are going to spend the money. And remember, most important, don't inflate the budgets. In your annexure, so now your proposal is more or less done. In your annexures, you should add about your organization, talk what is your organization, what is its mission, vision, what are the different activities that the organization does, who are the governing board members, what are the lessons learned from your organization, who are your other donors. This will be part of your annexure, but a very important part, because this will give a confidence to the donor of making a commitment to your organization. Now that we are ready with our proposal, with our budget, now it is time to send. If it is a solicited proposal, they may ask for submitting in a prescribed format. So, you submit the format. If they ask a hard copy, ensure that each of those pages of the hard copy are stamped. The next important thing is a covering letter. So, one is some donors have a prescribed format, may not require a covering letter, but some may expect a brief cover letter. Now, the letter should be succinct and well articulated. It should describe the need, explain what you will do, provide the organizational data and information, include the amount of funding required, conclude the letter with an offer to meet the donor if they require more information. Now that our proposal is done and our covering letter is done, okay, now it is time to give it to the donor. But just before submitting, just check whether our language is simple, whether the next person can understand it, is it using the future tense, check for spelling mistakes, ensure that you have given a catchy title to your project, and ensure that all the layouts and presentations are correctly numbered. Use your organization's logo on the first page, use header and footer to mention if required your organization's name or the project proposal's title. Have a table of content, print on a standard format paper, package your project into an attractive proposal with good edits and layouts. Final check before you submit, ask someone outside the project team to read the proposal before sending it to a donor. So, with this we have come to the end of second step. We come to the third step, that is submission of a proposal and follow up. Now that the proposal is ready, we send to the donor, either we know or the one who has solicited it or randomly that we are sending it. They may have some questions or clarifications which should be furnished. In some cases, the donor may visit your organization before making decisions on funding. On such times, please ensure that your organizations have all its papers, certificates, registrations, accounts in place for them to review and view. That helps them to show how transparent your organization is. You will have to follow up on the status of the proposal. Some donors give web-based update, in which case the online update should be followed up. In case your proposal is not successful, you will call the donor and ask how the proposal could be strengthened. Wish you all the best in writing a successful proposal.